Well, Deepak, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, Julian.
Yeah, I'm very excited to chat with you today. You told me a little bit about yourself and what you do through our introduction. Why don't we just start with that? What is the thing that you're doing? You mentioned a lot about anxiety and fast relief and some new techniques that you have. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I use a process, Julian, called advanced voice biofeedback technology. It's kind of a new kind of category altogether with my system that I created called my Life Transformation Technology Program. I've been doing this program for 20 years on people all over the US and world. It's all done remotely, and it's based on the sound of your voice. And why your voice? Because I have found in all my research and data that your voice is the most accurate reflection of what's going on in your subconscious mind, both good and limiting. And I focus on the limiting because if it's good, it's good. Limiting emotions like low self-esteem, low self-worth, depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, emotional triggers. Like you get upset about something, somebody cuts you off on the road or someone says something mean to you, and you just can't seem to get it out of your head. Or maybe some past traumatic event, maybe a breakup, divorce, maybe something related to work. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a voice pattern for all of these. And I found that the voice reflects your emotions very accurately, and it affects different notes in your voice, how they're expressed from the sound of your voice, which I use computer technology to monitor with what I call voice maps, or what are called voice maps.
Okay. So you're doing this remotely. So you're going through a microphone and then you're using some sort of program, some technology that actually records and monitors the voice. So then you can see pitches, frequencies, dynamics over there, and that's how you do your assessment.
Yes, yes. It's a very sophisticated way of analyzing the voice. It'll actually share with me not only the issue the person's challenged with emotionally, but even other emotional issues that the person's not even aware of. And I
It's
can even go
unconscious.
to another depth, Julian, to actually track it back to where it originally came from. And it always goes back to a person's childhood, no exception, in all the thousands of people I've done, from age 0 to 12, no
Mhm.
matter what's going on in their current life, even today. So I can
Yeah.
track it back to where it came from, which is the root of the plant, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's not surprising. Every trauma that I've ever worked with, even when things are happening now, the pattern is fully developed and it usually originates very early in life when we're learning how to process and regulate emotions. All right. So what does this look like? So when you're recording a track or you're doing a session with somebody and you're getting their voice recording, how do vocal signals translate over to emotions and how do you map that through a timeline?
Yeah, so basically, this all work is done remotely from the comfort of their home, and I'll have them, download a specific app to their computer, and they'll need a specific headset with the swing down mic. I found the USB headset captures the voice very accurately, and so they'll speak about the challenge they're having for about 15 or 20 seconds or so. It creates like a voice sampling amount of data of which I can analyze the different frequencies in their voice. But not only that, I can analyze the intensity of the voice in different aspects of what they're saying. And this is based on a science that different emotions affect different notes in your voice. What I mean by that is, if somebody's really sad or depressed about something, even for 10 years, 20 years, one lady, 65 years of depression, it actually squashes different notes of your voice or your internal keyboard. So for your listeners and viewers, imagine that all 60 trillion cells of our body, let's assume 60 trillion cells, has a keyboard in it. And imagine that keyboard has 12 key notes on it. There's, of course, octaves and all that, but let's talk 12 key notes. So sadness, depression squashes certain notes of your voice when you're sad about something. Anger squashes different notes of your voice. Fear, worry, different notes. Low self-worth, low self-esteem, not feeling seen or heard, different notes, and so on and so forth, and trauma as well. So based on what notes I don't hear versus what I do hear, I can find out what those emotions are and the intensity of those emotions too. So
Okay.
there you go. Yeah.
So you're saying when you're saying it squashes notes out, that means that it's suppressed. You don't hear those notes when in somebody's vocal range.
Exactly right. When I say squashes, it
Mhm.
means it literally squashes or squelches that notes from being heard. And it's interesting. 99% of my clients are women. I can work on men equally, and I'd welcome them, please. Is that the most common thing the women say to me is, Deepak, when I'm speaking to people, I feel I'm not seen, heard, acknowledged, appreciated, valued, and understood.
Mhm.
And the reason that is because when they have these limiting emotions, which of course, as you said, came from childhood, it literally squashes or squelches those notes from being heard in their voice. And if they have a lot of those issues, a lot of those notes are not heard. And guess what? If you're not heard, you're not seen, you're not valued or appreciated. Thus,
Mhm.
so that's where that pattern comes from. So
Yeah.
what I do with this process, which is very unique, is I reverse engineer it to get those notes that are not playing to play. So whatever emotions were squelching those notes cannot coexist in an otherwise harmonized environment, regardless of what the emotion is.
I see where you're going with this. So the emotion is tied to a vocal note, and the vocal note is suppressed. And so that emotion in that sense is being suppressed. There's no expression. And so then these people are saying, people don't hear me, people don't see me. Well, it's actually being buried. It's not coming out. And so then you're working with them to start to find that specific note that is correlated to the emotion that you're working with and start to voice it.
Exactly, exactly. And the process is sophisticated on my end, but for the
Hmm.
client, it's very straightforward. All
Hmm.
they have to do is think of the challenging emotion or event with their eyes closed. They place their hand on a technology which sends the frequencies into their hand, and the hand is a chakra or energy center of the whole body. And that goes into every single cell of your body. Remember, each cell has that keyboard in it to resonate those stuck notes to play. Here's an example of this process. It's known as sympathetic resonance. If we have two pianos next to each other, right? The old-fashioned kind of pianos, not the electronic pianos. If I push down the pedal key and I hit the note A on piano 1, the note A on piano 2 will resonate. I'm not saying the key will go down on piano 2,
Hmm.
but that string that's connected to that note will resonate.
Sure.
Guaranteed.
Hmm.
Why? I didn't even touch the second piano. You know why? Because sympathetic resonance, like energies, like frequencies, resonate like frequencies. The law of
Hmm.
attraction kind of thing.
Sure.
So if that note is not heard in their voice, let's say it wasn't heard for 20 years, they had depression for 20 years, 30 years, like one lady, 60 years. I reverse engineer it by resonating that stuck note to resonate, to play, even though it didn't play for all those years. And
Hmm.
then once it starts playing, whatever emotion was sitting on it cannot coexist in a harmonized environment. And it just leaves the body, almost like being vacated out of a hotel that you're not really supposed to be staying in.
Okay. So if somebody has suppressed anger, let's say, and so this is not voicing in them, but they're around other people who are expressing rage or anger constantly. So that vocal note is being expressed through other people around them. How does that resonate with this note? So if they're hitting the A key for anger constantly around them, would their anger A key start to resonate? Do they get triggered or activated in some way when somebody else is expressing the thing that they're repressing?
Yes, in the sense that if it triggers a response from childhood where that same, for example, I'll give an example to your audience. Let's say where parents were really yelling at the kid, "You're no good. You'll never amount to anything. Why did you mess that up? I told you to do this. You should have done better on the test," or whatever. Or you're not as talented as us. Why couldn't you be more smarter in the family, or whatever things? And by the way, these are actual things I've heard from people who told
Very common.
adults. Yeah. So, would that affect? Yeah, that creates a trigger from childhood. So yes, if people are around who are angry, which is similar to the pattern they had as a childhood, that will definitely trigger that, absolutely, and trigger that same emotional response. It's like a chain reaction. This triggers this, which triggers this. Oh my God. And the person doesn't even know what's happening. It happens faster than you blink your eye. So it's unconscious, meaning you're not aware. So then they get triggered, so they'll get angry. But maybe it wasn't anger, maybe it was sadness. So they may actually get sad by something like that. because they withdrew. So it's all based on what happened. And I found from age 0 to 10, especially from age 0 to 7, that is the biggest high effect of impact. If, like, say, the anger example you gave, whatever is said and done, 0 to 7, this is what I found. You don't even question it. You accept it as a gospel truth, even if it's unbelievably insane. For example, a quick one. A parent actually told this kid, you know what? You'll never amount to more than a ditch digger in your life. I don't see any hope for you. A parent saying this to a son, and there's many other cases too. But guess what? That imprints in the kid, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'll never amount to anything.
Yeah.
So they'll try to do everything under the sun to achieve and everything, but they'll never get the satisfaction until we go to the root.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense because for the first 12 years of your life, for 7 years in particular, your body's developing, your nervous system's developing, your emotional circuits are developing. The way that you express, process, soothe emotions, regulate emotions is being established. Your worldview of the world around you, yourself in that world, all of these are being established then. So, yeah, if you're being told that you're nothing, you're worthless, you're not good enough, this is the internalized belief. It's the default system, so to speak. And so you have a way of, in a sense, mapping out the emotional aspects. And with the emotional aspects comes what's triggering, what's causing those emotions, which is usually your perception and your belief, your worldviews. So when you get angry because somebody cut you off, it's usually, well, this person doesn't value or respect me, or they don't see me. And that's what triggers the anger, which then triggers, this is painful. So you can map out through the voice the emotional experience that people are having, along with a good idea of the belief system, the perception, the worldview that they're having that's associated with these emotions.
Exactly, Julian. I can track it right back to the beginning. Therefore, when I do release these patterns, which I ultimately track back to their childhood, even if they didn't remember it, they'll remember it eventually when I get to it.
Mhm.
They will then have a new shift in perception on what they previously believed, even if they had that their whole life before in a negative way. They will see things in a different way, a positive way than they did before. It's literally like rewiring the subconscious in an optimal way. There's a couple of steps. We unwire the unresourceful connection. We release the emotional charge stored in the circuitry from the childhood. Then we reconnect it in a completely different optimal way that wasn't there before. So now they have a shift in perception like, you know what? Yeah, that was horrible what happened in my childhood. Even physical and emotional abuse, I've dealt with that as well with others. But you know what? That built my character, that made me who I am today. And I'm not going to let people take advantage of me like what happened when I was a kid. And I'll make better decisions of who I draw into my life. I'll look at things in a different way. That will actually happen from within them. I'll create the environment for that to occur within the person by releasing those limiting patterns they picked up from their parents, but not only their parents, their entire childhood, and even their grandparents, even if the grandparents were not even around when that kid was born, because I can measure
Of
those
course.
imprints as well from the grandparents too.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, most of these patterns are intergenerational in the sense that I learned it from my parents, who learned it from their parents, who learned it from their parents, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we discussed how you identify the patterns, and now we're moving into what do you do with the patterns. Walk me through this step by step. So you're talking about unplugging and then releasing and then replugging into a new area. What does this look like? So we've identified, okay, I have really low self-worth. I believe that I'm not good enough, unworthiness, I'm not deserving. And so I self-sabotage, or I attract people constantly who treat me the way that my parents treated me when I was a kid because I mistake compassion and connection for that kind of abuse. I'm looking for the care I didn't get from the people who were unable to give it to me. So I'm still looking for that today. We identify these patterns. What are we doing with those? How are we deprogramming them in the language that we're using, so to speak, and then reprogramming something else?
Yeah. So when I listen to their voice, and again,
Hmm.
ultimately we track it back to childhood where it came from, but I deal with the current issue they're dealing with. Like you said, self-sabotage, low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, very common issues that happen with a lot of people, and unresourceful decisions, right? They mean well, they do these destructive decisions. Like, why do I keep doing that? Or the most common thing I hear with women, Deepak, like, I'm a nice, honest, caring woman. Why am I drawing these neurotic, psychotic, controlling, narcissistic, manipulative, gaslighting people in my life over and over and over again? And I said, well, you know why? Because in your childhood, all you saw was a dysfunctional fighting with your parents and screaming and yelling and physical and emotional abuse. So your subconscious thought, well, that's what a relationship is, even though you didn't want any of that. And
Hmm.
so it got programmed into your subconscious. But the good news is we can release that limiting program, because I would do the clearing process on these women and they would start drawing these wonderful, unbelievable men, like from a storybook, literally, as they told me, that they could have never dreamed of even having. And this is the other part, Julian. These men, in this case, that they drew into their life were loving, nurturing, supporting, and caring once I did the childhood clearing process. And they didn't even have a concept of what even love is. And the reason I shared this with you, Julian, is because even if you didn't have a concept of what a loving, nurturing relationship is, because you never saw it your whole life, you can have that. You can have all those things you didn't have before. So I just want to inspire your audience with that. So going back to your question, when I listen to their voice and map out their voice map of their emotional imprint patterns, I can actually determine the very high or extreme level patterns that are holding them back in their life. There are other patterns that will show cool, which means it's not an issue for them. But if they're high or extreme, like on the emotional charge wise, when they talk about it, you know, this person cut me off in traffic. This person, fired me, and I should have had another 5 years at that place. I was unjustly treated, or whatever, betrayed. I can map that out, and then I'll say, okay, I would like you to go ahead, close your eyes, place your hand on this technology. That's the one that sends the frequencies that I specifically determined that's unique for them, that they need to release this pattern. Think about that challenging situation. It's done in 2 to 3 minute bursts, depending on what I feel they need. Think about that challenging situation. Go over it in your mind. You don't have to say a word. Just think about, review what happened, the unjustness of it, the unfairness of it, the humiliation of it, the whole thing. So they'll do that in 2 minute bursts. Now, let's say they were to level 10. 10 is like, oh, I'm really upset about this, or sad, or whatever. After one round, that's called a round, a couple of minutes, I'll say, okay, now tell me about the situation that you just reviewed in your head. How do you feel about it now on a scale of 1 to 10? Maybe it's like a 7. Okay, let's do another round. Each session I do is an hour. So we keep taking it down, and then suddenly something that was a 10 may drop down to a 2 or a 1. And if it didn't happen in that one session, maybe they had this for 20 years, 30 years, some issue, emotion, it might happen just a couple sessions, which is a fraction of the time that they had it to begin with in their whole life, So that's how I was talking about, like, unwiring it, releasing the emotional charge, and then reconnecting it in a different way by sending these frequencies to them in exactly what they need.
Yeah. So it sounds like the first step is awareness, right? Becoming
Exactly.
aware of the patterns that we were unconscious or unaware of to begin with. And
Absolutely.
then, and then once that we become aware of it, and tell me, and I'll be very curious about this from your experience too. So
Yeah,
after we become aware of something, we understand that there's a dynamic here. Very frequently, there are defense mechanisms that are connected to that pattern that are there. A denial, let's say, or I don't like that and I want it to go away because I learned that when I was angry as a kid, I got punished and I couldn't be around people until I could suppress the emotion. So now when I see, oh, there's anger here and you've showed me I have anger here, this is bad. So accepting the dynamic that's there is usually pretty challenging. I'm very curious to see, once you recognize, identify the pattern, and then you start to move into accepting it, because you have to accept that it's here before you can do something with it, before you can change something different. I'm curious, actually. Let's go into that really fast. There's not. I'm wondering, what does it look like with your clients when you're showing them this is the pattern that I'm finding inside of you. What's happening there in that moment with them?
Well, that's an excellent point you brought up, Julian, because, like, for example, here's a case study. I had a woman who came in. Obviously, she had an issue to deal with. And I said, "What's going on in your life?" "Well, Deepak, everything is pretty good overall. Things are not too bad." And, but it sounded like to the average person, it sounds like, well, it might be some mild issue, not too bad. But on my reading, which I now can do with this, even before the computer picks it up, it showed extreme charge. Like, I'm really pissed off, even though she didn't say it like that. So I
Hmm.
said, okay, I understand you're saying everything's okay. You're just a little perturbed about something, or her words, but it seems like, but I know you're extremely angry about this. In fact, rageful. Just be open with me. Okay, now what happened here? So after talking to her just briefly like that, she goes, "Okay, you know what the truth is? My boyfriend broke up with me 1 week ago. We had a great relationship. That was unfair. And guess what? 2 weeks before that, my boss fired me. Can you believe that? Can you believe that?" Da, da, da. Because I knew that they were suppressing it. But I gently, and I'm always, empathetic with people, say, "Okay, look, I know this is going on. You're here with me for a reason." So the reason I say that, Julian, is even if they try to hide it, I can pick it up in their voice right away. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say here. But the other point I want to add to this, Julian, is this. Even if there's like 10 frequencies they need, and a lot of people need that, I don't deliver all of them at once. I don't just fire hose them with all these frequencies, which is what a lot of people do. I ask their subconscious, not them, because they might say, "Deepak, send them all to me." Say, "No, I know you want them all and you want this quick thing, quick fix, but I asked your subconscious faster than you blink your eye." And I said, "Subconscious of this woman, what is she really ready to receive from me at this very moment, in this very few seconds I'm about to send to her, a few minutes?" So her subconscious said, "Well, send that one. No, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes." It'll tell me very specifically, and I will only send that, regardless of what the person wanted. That's what the subconscious could handle. And remember, 99% of the equations, the subconscious running the show. So
Hmm.
it's always a perfect match. So
Gotcha.
that's how I can get these kind of results I'm getting. It's at the rate the subconscious accepts it, because it goes, then after I send that round, a couple minutes at a time, subconscious goes, "Ooh, that felt really good. I can handle that. You know what? I'm going to open my door a little wider now. Now I think I can take a little bit more from Deepak." And then it builds from there.
How are you asking the subconscious? How are you having this dialogue with the subconscious about what it can handle and what it can't?
So it's based on galvanic skin variability and other technologies like that. So the subconscious responds like at the speed of light, basically. So the responses of our body are like that too. So I'll basically send
I see
each.
where you're going with this.
You see where I'm going? So
Hmm.
I'll basically send the frequencies again faster than they blink their eye, because that's how fast the subconscious works. They'll be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, what, Deepak?" By the time their conscious mind responds. So I don't ask that. So I'll say, "Okay, boom, here's the response." So the person will respond, and maybe they'll sweat a little more, maybe their pulse rate will increase for a fraction of a second. I can measure all that, and it
Hmm.
basically tells, and it'll give an intensity of the emotion. So like, no, yes, no, no.
Okay.
So that's based on that.
So when you say biofeedback, then tell me
Yeah.
the things that you're measuring. It sounds like perspiration, heart rate, body temperature. These are things that you're
Yeah.
looking into?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not doing it without any wires or gels or anything like that. I'm just doing it
Hmm.
with their hand on the technology, which measures all of that.
And what
Um,
is that? Is that like a little probe, a little sensor of some sort?
it's like a plate that they place their hand on. It's like a metal plate with stainless steel fingers, you might say. It's the shape of a
Hmm.
hand, and it measures all of that. And so I can send the signal like quick signal, like super fast, and then it'll answer all the questions like that. And then I'll just
Hmm.
send them what they need with what they need at that moment. And the neat thing is, all the client has to do, I do all this heavy duty work. And because now, after doing this for many years, I might say, okay, this person needs these specific frequencies based on my knowledge and experience. And I can kind of cut to the chase of what their subconscious wanted, even of those. Um,
Hmm.
but all they have to do is just think of the challenging situation, like they're really
Yeah.
upset about, which will be no problem because they're so into the emotion of that. And it'll just start taking the charge down. They'll have a new
Hmm.
realization of the whole thing. I mean, it might have been a horrible thing. Maybe it was abuse. I've dealt with a lot of that as well, physical, emotional abuse. It'll even take the charge, emotional charge out of it. That's the key thing. And then repattern it, have them have a new perception of it. Because I'm sending harmonic frequencies that actually, once it's unwired and rewired in a different way, they'll have automatically on their own a new perception of the event that may have been horrible for them.
Hmm. Yeah.
That way they can live life and make better decisions and draw better things into their life. I notice the law of attraction seems to shift in their favor, even without having to say mantras too, which is pretty cool as well.
Hmm. So the way that people are able to work through these defense mechanisms or these barriers in terms of not just seeing but accepting this dynamics inside of me is you have this ability to see how much of the truth of what they're dealing with, the frequencies of the emotions that are suppressed, for instance, they can handle at a time. And then it's not desensitization, right? But that was the word that came to my mind. It's little by little, and it's building safety. It's here's how much I can take of this frequency. And I say, oh yeah, that actually is there. Okay, so it was safe. I can see it now. And then you increase the amount that's coming through with them little by little. And um this is where we're starting to find the acceptance of, oh, this is inside of me. And it sounds like also this is the area where there's understanding that's building of, oh yeah, this is inside of me and it comes from here. Is this also what's happening here? Is this so there's this curiosity that's building in terms of I found this emotion. Oh yeah, there's red hot rage inside of me. And there's a belief that I'm not being seen, which goes all the way back to this area here. So when we start to see the acceptance, this is also, it sounds like what you're saying is people are starting to conceptualize and understand this is where it comes from.
So in a sense, that's correct. So the thing is, if someone is red hot upset, here just an example. They could be very sad too, but that's a common one. Someone cut me off in the road, or can you believe I got fired from this job? When they come right to do the session with me. So they're obviously at level 10. I don't even have to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10 if 10's the highest. I already know that. So I start channeling it down, like you're saying. It's not desensitization. We're actually dealing with the actual issue and rewiring that and releasing the emotional charge from it and then rewiring it in an optimal way. So as it drops down, then I'll say, how do you feel about it now? It's like, ooh, I feel kind of grounded, calm, centered. I can think more clearly. Yeah, it was wrong. What happened? It was bad, but I realized I kind of overreacted and, maybe that job wasn't the right job for me. Maybe there's a better job for me out there. They'll see this on their own, by the way. Now, the second part that you said is, will they realize where it actually came from? They may not they may not be ready to realize yet. That's what I would see as a practitioner, because I would have, in the first half hour, the first hour and a half session, I will map out while taking them to an altered state of consciousness, their conscious mind voice map, subconscious mind voice map, a voice map of their mom, their dad, and the voice map of each of their grandparents and any relationships they had. I'll map out all of that, and I will show it to the client, and I'll actually show a certain percentage of their own perception of the world. They think this is how I believe, Deepak. I'll say, well, actually, your perceptions influenced 80% by your father's father, 75% by your mother's mother, 90% by your father, 65% by your mother. So you think it's your way of looking at things, but it's actually a combination of all of them. And once I show them that, then I say, now that you understand that, and that explains why things happen in your life the way they did and why you reacted and drew the things into your life this way. Now let's do a step-by-step program of clearing these limiting patterns, starting with your mom, then your dad, whichever one you want to do first, and then your key childhood events. Everyone's had them that were limiting or traumatic. Everyone's had them. And then we go to what's going on in your current life, current and past relationships, and then lastly, grandparents. That completes clearing the kind of matrix programming that the person had since they were a kid. So they may not necessarily know where that came from, but that's where I kind of take it from there. Now that we cleared the emotional charge in this given moment, now you can think clearly, and we'll say, let's see now why you reacted this way. Then remember in our first session, I talked about that particular pattern. Well, as I mentioned, a certain percentage came from each parent and grandparent, which I haven't mapped out. So now let's go back to, when did you feel this kind of injustice feeling like you felt in this scene in your childhood? Oh, yeah, that was when I was 7, when my father, hit me, for doing nothing, basically, just, and I'm just asking a question, or, yelled at me or screamed at me. So then we go to the root cause of why that even happened, so it doesn't happen again.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it sure does. Wow. How do you map out where these dynamics are coming from? So you say like 70% your father, or, 30% your grandmother. How are you figuring those dynamics out?
So it's based on their own perception of their reality. Now, if you go by the concept, this goes even deeper though. Your conscious mind is like, okay, I have to do these things on my list, accomplish these things, get the groceries, which I may forget. Well, our subconscious runs everything, including all our body organs, as you know, heart rate, pulse rate, liver, pancreas. Now imagine if we say, oh, Deepak, I forgot to run my heart. Okay, I'll do better next time. I forgot to run my pancreas, kidneys. Well, you don't really have a next time, right? Thank God our subconscious runs all that. But it also runs every thought, feeling, sight, sound, emotion in every quadrillionth of a second or fraction of a second in every part of our life. So even if we don't remember what happened in our childhood or certain events that were traumatic, it's still stored in the subconscious memory. Eventually they will. And they don't have to remember the specific issue. They just have to trigger into the emotion, which I'll be able to take them to step by step. I can trigger it. So what I do is I create these voice maps, and basically it's their perception of what they felt happened with the parents. So for example, with this technology, I take them to an altered state of consciousness so I can access the energy of what their emotions are from their subconscious. So I'll say, okay, tell me about yourself. Oh, my name is Deepak Chari. I'm this tall. My hair color is this. My eye color is this. Okay, that's their conscious mind talking. Then I'll send certain frequencies to them, and I'll say, I want you to think about your childhood, different events in your childhood. And while I send certain frequencies to them. So I do that for a couple of minutes, and that takes them to an altered state of consciousness. Then I'll say, I want you to tell me again about yourself. Well, my name is Deepak Chari. I'm this tall. My hair color is this. My eye color is this. Now, so they're saying basically the same words again, but now they're in an altered state. Now they're speaking from their subconscious. So I can create their subconscious voice map. Okay. And then after that, I'll say, okay, tell me about your dad. What was it like with your dad? Well, my dad was mean, controlling, arrogant. He beat me really bad. And okay, just like briefly, like 15 seconds. I said, we'll get into that more deeper later on. Tell me about your mom. Same thing. Now, tell me about the relationships. Oh, I just had a breakup in this recent relationship. And tell me about your past relationships. Because unless we clear the relationships, they're going to keep repeating. So we have to clear the baggage on current and past. And then lastly, I'll say, tell me about all of your grandparents, your father's father, father's mother, mother's father, mother's mother. Okay? If they're adopted, I go to biological as well as adopted parents. Now, one of your viewers or listeners might say, well, Deepak, I don't really know any of my grandparents. So how are you going to record them, right? Maybe we don't need to record them at all. I said, no, we do. Because they may have more impact than your parents did. I've seen that a lot. And trust me, how many times, right, Julian, have you seen a grandkid of somebody? They walk, act, and talk like the grandparent who died before they were born. They kind of talk like this, and they have a personality like this, and they even think like them. I mean, trust me, this is real stuff. I call them ancestral imprints, epigenetic patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Precisely.
yeah, exactly. So these are all there. So again, how did they record the grandparents? They don't remember them, right? Well, your subconscious knows all. Yeah, like you talked about awareness, it knows everything that you don't consciously know. 99% of the equation. So I'll say, okay, you had a father's father. I know that you did. Everyone does. So what I want you to do is, you know what your father looks like, right? Yeah. I want you to see a visual of your father. Remember, they're in an altered state of consciousness. They can access that information. And imagine the shadowy figure right next to your father is your father's father. I know you don't know what he looks like, and your parents never told you about him. That's happened before. So just imagine, put your attention on this father's father that you know is some silhouetted figure who existed. And then say to me, I don't know anything about my father's father. They'll go, what? I said, well, you don't know, right? Yeah, okay, then say that. I don't know anything about my father's father. I don't know anything. They keep repeating that for about 10, 15 seconds. They don't even have a clue why they're doing that. But they're just, I said, but you're focusing all your attention here, right? On that. Okay, yeah. Now, it'll be interesting, Julian, it'll actually show, sometimes it might go boom on the meter as far as emotional charge. It might show rage, or it might show anger, or sadness, or depression, or low self-worth, or low self-esteem, or fear and paranoia, always freaking out about everything, And then the other grandparent who they didn't know at all, it might show that they're terrified of every little thing, or they had a trauma, maybe in their life, and then they never got over that trauma. It might show that extreme. So in other words, it'll quantify the emotional charge they picked up from the field of their energetic field for that person. So it's relative to them. Does that make sense? It's from their own perception. Now, they're not constantly aware of it, but the subconscious knows all. So I'm able to access that through their voice. That's why voice is the most accurate reflection. So it's interesting. It might show extreme, extreme, extreme on all these different things. So when we do get to the grandparents at the tail end of these sessions to clear them from the matrix, then sometimes sometimes tears will just flow out of their eyes. They didn't know this person at all. And they're like, what is this, Because they're releasing the emotions of that ancestor that they didn't even know through them, which was affecting their life and how they saw the world. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. I mean, there's been lots of studies where they stress mice out, for instance. They play a sound, a very specific pitch, and then they shock them whenever that sound starts. And I know this is how a lot of
I
studies
know.
are done. And then they find that the physiological response that the mice have when the shock happens continues even when they just play the sound and they don't administer the shock. Where it gets really interesting is 3-4 generations later, the mice are still responding to the sound as if they're about to get shocked. They never met their grandparents or their great-grandparents, but it has been internalized. It's not a genetic change, it's an epigenetic trait that has been handed down, and here it is.
Exactly.
So the way that you're finding these is you're doing the voice mapping through various topics, so to speak. So you do the whole thing again on this topic of your father, and then you do it again on the mother, and then you do it on the grandparents, and then you're testing to see the pitches on those, and that gives you an idea of where this emotion is coming from in terms of the person or the place.
Exactly. More specifically, versus the pitches, it's the emotional charge. I can actually measure the emotional charge and the intensity of that charge on the carrier wave. So, for example, let's say you're talking to someone and you go, some people say to me, Deepak, every time I talk to people, they're just so irritated by me. They don't want to be around me. And I'm just talking about nice general stuff. Like, why are they trying to avoid me, or what's going on? And I'll listen to their voice. Okay, this is what's happening. You have some unresolved issues of anger from some previous scene. I know it's not connected to them, but somehow you're getting triggered by them. Maybe somehow they're triggering you of your dad or something who was really horrible to you, I know. So when you're talking to them, you have this anger because he triggers you of that anger on that carrier wave. They're speaking even nice words like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? But the anger is on the carrier wave. You're literally like emailing it to them through the ether, that emotion. That's why they're getting like, oh, I don't want to be around this person. Like, oh, because the person that they're doing to might have had that same issue in their life, maybe, but someone yelling at them too. So that's why that happens. Like people say, why are people avoiding me or ignoring me? Or here's another one. Remember I said the women said, I'm not seen, respected, heard. I had this woman who worked with all these top executives, and they were going to make a business decision, which was not a good one. So she told him, gentlemen, do not do this. In fact, I have a better idea. If you don't do this idea and do this, you will double your income in the whole portfolio. Well, guess what? They didn't hear a word she said. They did their own thing, which was a huge mistake, and they lost millions. So they were so upset about that. And this lady was too, because she told them exactly what to do to prevent it. She said, Deepak, I told them what to do, and they didn't listen to a word I said. Why? I said, you know what? They couldn't hear you, because I can barely hear you, even though you're even upset about it, because most of the notes in your voice are literally squashed with that emotion. So I cleared that limiting emotion. Then I said, okay, you're a smart woman. You'll have more incredible ideas for those men to prevent this from happening in the future. Give it to them. So she went to those men. She goes, okay, gentlemen, you didn't listen to my advice before. You lost a ton. I have a new idea that can actually turn around, not only break even, but even go above that. This is my idea. They said, oh my God, that is an incredible idea. Oh my God. I wish you had told us ideas like that before, because we wouldn't have lost a ton of money on that previous deal. Then she kind of looked up at the ceiling. But the point made was that she was heard and seen, you see?
Yeah.
That's how literally it affects our voice.
Hmm. There's, in the language of therapy, like IFS therapy, for instance, the way we would look at this we would say that at some point in that person's life, she learned to be quiet, to make herself small as an adaptation to something that was going on. So there's a part of her who is still trying to make herself small. Or with the first example, the repressed rage, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still here. This person's still carrying it around, and it's coming out in all of it, just bursting out the seams, and she's not aware of it. And people are picking up on it because there's a part of her that's very angry. And so once we can really identify who's at play here in terms of this dynamic, this pattern, this emotion that's coming up, I'm making myself small. I can't be seen, although I want to be seen. Or I'm very angry and I'm expressing this anger, even though I don't want to express this anger. Once we can really soothe those in some ways, and that's what it sounds like you're doing when you're talking about resolving these emotions, taking the emotional charge out, is there's some amount of soothing these dynamics or patterns. It sounds like right after that, you're introducing a brand new pattern. So it's a rewiring of sorts. And then they just reinforce this new pattern over and over and over again, and they get these different results.
Exactly. Right on. Exactly. So here's an example. You nailed it. So here's an example for your listeners and viewers. Imagine two people are hand wrestling each other, right? One guy's this huge muscle man. The other guy's this really skinny guy who hasn't really worked out, has no muscle development. Who's going to win? The muscle guy, right? It's a no-brainer, right?
Sure.
That's our subconscious. Deepak, I want to speak to this group of in my case, women or majority, these group of women or men. But you know, when I go on stage, I just kind of like freeze up, you know, and my subconscious is like, you can't do this. You're not worthy. Who are you to speak to this group of 100 people here? You know, you don't have what it takes. You're not intelligent. The subconscious, right? The muscle one, I told you, right, is pushing back the other way. So you say, I want to do this. It's going to say, no, you're not. You don't deserve to be in front of this audience. So I communicate with this process to the conscious mind, to the subconscious mind, but to the conscious mind also, basically saying, look, we can't fight each other and win this thing. We need to be in compromise with each other.
Yeah.
Look, conscious mind, yes, you have good intention, 1% of the equation, but the 99% is the subconscious mind. We got to agree, like, look, we got to say, look, let's work together. Mm-hmm. Instead of being the wind against me and trying to, you can, punch your way through it and with the wind against you, let's get the wind behind your back. Okay? A lot of people, imagine you're in a beautiful, gorgeous car, like a Lamborghini or something. The subconscious mind has sort of a mentality of a 5-year-old. It's pure, it's innocent, but it also needs direction just like a parent, right? Mm-hmm. But we put it in the driver's seat and we sit in the back seat and hope all goes well. Well, it's going to take us down.
I use.
What was that?
I said that's the exact analogy that I use with people.
Oh, okay. We're on the same wavelength. See, already.
Yeah.
So it's like driving. We're like, oh my God, I'm in the most luxurious, gorgeous car in the world. And like, I want to get out of this car as soon as possible. Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to get in the driver's seat, put the subconscious in the back with the safety strap like a child, because it can't even touch the pedal unless it uses a stick or something, and say, look, you are turbo power. You will create opportunities, events, situations that I could not possibly create with my conscious mind. No way. You're infinite potential, but you are the fuel, rocket fuel behind this rocket ship flying, going. I'm going to direct it though. Okay. I put you in the driver's seat. That was a mistake. I'm going to direct it. You be the turbo power, create the opportunity situations, and I'll just drive this thing. That's basically what I do in this process.
Yeah. I mean, that's it right there. There's an internal conflict happening. this part of them developed and said, I know how to handle these situations. We make ourselves small, agreeable, and be quiet, and we will get by no problem. But then there's this other part who says, but I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want people to understand what I'm saying. And then they're butting heads. And this 5-year-old is who developed when the mind was developing, when the emotions were developing, when these patterns were developing. And she's got both hands on the wheel, and you're in the back seat wondering why would we keep going to the same destination over and over and over again? Yeah.
Yes.
But the 5-year-old wants to go to the same place as you. She's just looking for safety. She's looking to be valued and accepted and to be comforted and soothed. Okay, we can do all of that, and we can still get to the exact same place. So yeah, this is the thing here of really working with those patterns and then choosing something new. You're mentioning
Yes.
these states of consciousness quite a bit. What is it like for one of your clients when you're navigating these various different states of consciousness, or you used the word altered state of consciousness a couple times? What's it like for somebody when they're navigating these with you?
Well, the neat thing is, I am taking them to very deep states of consciousness. So when we start out, like imagine it's like an elevator with how I do it. We're just talking about the issues. Okay, this is what's going on. Okay, now let's dive in. So we start the process. It's like an elevator. I'm taking them down to a certain state, and then we clear different emotions there. Then we go to a deeper state and clear different emotions there, and keep going down until we get to like the master control room, like where all the like that's the childhood stuff, where all the deep stuff actually got originally programmed. Now, the neat thing is the person could be just off the street. They don't have any idea what consciousness is, what deep states of meditation or Zen-like states are. I'll take them there. Without them realizing it, and just clearing these imprints and patterns. They simply focus on the challenging emotions, challenging events. I'll take care of the rest. I've had people who meditated for 40 years, and they said, okay, Deepak, I think I'll be able to go deeper than the regular person who doesn't know anything about this kind of thing. I said, well, the thing is, you did great for those 40 years, but you might have gone down to about this level. But all the stuff I'm picking up in your voice is way down in here, and you only got down up to about this level. So I start everyone on the same page. It doesn't matter if you meditated for 40 years or don't even know what meditation even is. I'll still be able to get to, that's the cool thing with this work. They don't have to understand anything or even understand the states of consciousness, like you said, which is exactly what I'm doing. I'll take them down to where all those core levels are, clear those limiting patterns, unwire the unresourceful one, release the emotional charge stored in the wiring, in the circuitry, and then it'll automatically rewire in the most optimal way, the way it really should have been for that person, for their optimal happiness and joy for them, unique for each person. The wiring may be different from one person to the next person for their joy and happiness in life based on their personality, how they look at things, and what they've gone through. But it'll always be perfect for each person.
It's quite incredible how similar the work that we do is, yet the approach is completely different. It's funny how we
Yeah,
can find these exact same paths through various means like this and get to the same place. This is
absolutely.
really quite incredible. How long do you usually work with people? What are the average durations of these types of regimens when people come to see you?
So I start out, that's a great question. I start out with the baseline of 9 foundational sessions. So
Mhm.
remember, these people had these patterns their whole life, okay? Not just like 1 or 2 years. Many people, see other practitioners for their whole life. Like I had a lady who was 90 who came to see me. She had been seeing a practitioner for 65 years and still had severe depression.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, we're going to start from ground zero. Like whatever you did before, don't worry about it. So I literally was able to clear that in a couple months, doing only 1 session a week. What she couldn't clear in 65 years. The point being is the methodology is kind of like a rocket ship versus a horse and buggy. You'll get to the same point, but the ride will be very smooth and effective. Um,
Mhm.
so it's a very eloquent, smooth process. And and go ahead with your question again about that. I'll just follow.
No, I was just asking about the time. So you say
Okay, time. So yeah,
it's
so I
about
started with
9 weeks here.
nine foundational sessions. Then that doesn't mean that
Mhm.
they'll everything will be cleared in those 9 sessions, because the key is, because let's say someone had, and it's very common, heavy emotional and physical abuse. Unfortunately, that's a lot of people have gone through that. So I have to clear the imprints they picked up from their mom, the imprints they picked up from their dad. And generally speaking, let's say it takes two, but it's for the regular person who didn't have to go through all that. But if someone had emotional and physical abuse, it might take 4 or 5 sessions, for each parent. And then after that, we have to clear the key childhood events that the kid went through. Like I went through bullying. That's why I created this whole program. But other people may have gone through other issues, with other situations. So we have to clear those emotional challenges in their childhood, because that's where they all came from. And then we go to what's going on in their current life that's upsetting them, relationships, current and previous, and then lastly, grandparents. So by the time they did 9 sessions, most likely they would have cleared, in general, the parent issues with the parents and some of the key childhood events in general. And then the next stage would be where they are now. So they wouldn't have cleared everything, but they would have gotten a good chunk of it, cleared up. And by the way, this is a fraction of the time it took them to get it in the first place.
Yeah. Do people then come back and do it again after a certain amount of time? So do they do a regimen for 9 weeks, let's say, and then they go back into life and they're experiencing things and saying, oh, this is different in these areas, or, oh, here's something that's still showing up, and then 6 months later come back and do it again? Is that common?
Well, maintenance is important too. Because think of it
Hmm.
this way, Julian. How many times we take care of our car, right? Do you agree with this, better than we take care of ourselves? We don't even
Sometimes, yeah.
question oil lube filter. We don't question the 6 month maintenance, rotating the tires, and then, changing the whole transmission system. No, no question on that. But taking care of ourselves, oh no. Yeah, it's a one and done deal kind of, and it's not like that. Why? Because we are much more highly evolved than a car, and we're a work in progress. Okay. So just like someone who has a brown belt or yellow belt, right? And the highest level is the black belt. And I think there's even levels above the black belt. The person, all of them can kick my butt. Okay. But amongst themselves, the black belt will definitely have an edge over the yellow belt or brown belt. And there's even people above the black belt. So my point is, I will take that person, once we did all the baseline work that I just talked about up to the grandparents, then we can go to new levels never before ventured. Like let's say
Yeah.
someone wants to go to a new level of administrative management. They were like a manager and they want to be like vice president. Well, they didn't have the skill level just to jump to vice president, but now they cleared all these limiting beliefs of what they could achieve in their life. And now they're like, suddenly they have a ceiling they can't get through. Now at this rate that they're at, this skill level, like let's say brown belt, I can release that limiting ceiling and now boom. Now they suddenly went to almost the highest level black belt from where they were. But they didn't have the skill level before, Julian, because they weren't ready for that, you see.
Hmm.
You might just say, well, why can't I just be the president of the company? Well, because you're sweeping the floor right now, and I know you want to get there, and I can take you there. But we have to go through these skill levels. It'll take a fraction of the time, though. We have to release the
Steps.
limiting beliefs at that level that you're at. And then you have maintenance, right? Because stuff's always going to happen. I'm not saying you won't have things happen in your life, but we do maintenance to make sure, like, okay, you're here. Now you can deal with the situations at the level you're at now, because your skill level is different. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Perfect. How often do you see people for maintenance then?
Usually, every month or two, it's good to kind
Yeah.
of tune things up. If it's a very high functioning executive, they may need to come more often. But for general people, like every month or 2 months or, even 3 months, but generally every couple of months, it's really good because when you do this work with me, it not only cleanses you, you have a new fresh perspective of life. You feel like, okay, yeah, I can face even stuff I'm not even knowing is going to happen. But you'll make better decisions, you'll think more clearly, and you'll draw more opportunities in your life than you would have otherwise had you not continued. Because I'll just release the blocks that you don't even know are there at the level
Mhm.
you're at now.
Yeah, because again, those blockages are like those adaptations that we developed early in life, those parts of us that are running the show. And when we can be aware of those and make choices, we get, tell me if you think this is accurate, more authentic to who we would have been before all that pain happened. It
we're totally on the same wavelength. That is exactly right. Basically, what this whole process that I'm doing is, to summarize it in a simpler way, is to bring out your true authentic self of who you are. When you have these limiting beliefs that your parents told you that were totally horrible and wrong, or other teachers, doesn't have to be parents, or maybe a combination of all of them, or then that forms a limiting belief of you. When we release that, then you start to see like, wait a minute, I actually am this. And that's who you truly should be, your true potential of who you are and what you need to be in your life. So you won't just keep living this like a rat race life, repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. You'll break out of that and suddenly you'll go to a new quantum level. And that's your true authentic self. That's your right. That is my true goal of what I want to help everyone get to.
Mhm. Now, you mentioned that you went through bullying, which is what led you to this. You
Yeah.
don't present as somebody who's perpetually bullied. So clearly this has had some impact on your life as well. When you talk, you have an exuberance, a zest, a passion, an excitement, and it's authentic. It's true to you. It's not, I'm putting on this mask to pretend that I'm this way so I can get these things here. Tell me a little bit about how has this process affected your life and your process, your transformation and becoming more of who you really are?
Lovely question. So yeah, I formed this whole program based on what I went through as a kid. I was bullied as a kid because I was kind of a bookworm kind of person. I didn't really fit in any group. I had very low self-esteem, low self-worth. So I would pretty much hide out in the library most of the time because I was getting bullied a lot. And to be safe. And when I was hiding in the library, I would grab books from the shelf just to keep myself occupied while I was just waiting for safety to leave. And those books I grabbed happened to be on the law of attraction, boosting self-esteem, self-worth, Napoleon Hill, As a Man Thinketh. I was grabbing all these books not knowing what they were. So I was actually programming myself to think in a different way. So when I faced the challenging world I had being bullied, I could deal with it better. So that formed my character of like, of who I was. And then later on in life, I was like divinely led to this whole technology and everything because of my own journey. And literally I was able to clear that pattern, which I found was like a matrix program, like in the movie The Matrix, that I thought I was destined because I was drawing horrible people in my life, narcissistic, manipulative, controlling, mean bosses,
Bullies.
supervisors, relationships, friends. I mean, they're no
Yeah.
longer my friends, but you would have said, my God, why, how could you have friends like that? I mean, they're treating
Mhm.
you like horrible, but I didn't know any different because that's how my childhood was and my upbringing. So, but once I cleared that programming with the same process that I was divinely guided to, because I was searching, I asked the universe, help me clear this blank pattern. It's never ending. Then I was guided to the right people, the software, technology. I cleared it for myself. I actually verified, you can actually clear this. I'm not destined to live this life like this. That's not my authentic self, as you said. And then I suddenly started drawing wonderful, nurturing, loving, caring, supported people, which I had no concept of, by the way. That's why I wanted to inspire your audience that even if you have no concept of what loving, nurturing, nice relationship is, you can have it all. I started getting that. I thought, my God, it is a matrix program. You're not destined to live a life like this. This is not what friends are. This is what real friends are. This is what a loving relationship is. This is what wonderful bosses, supervisors are. So I proved it to myself. Then I said, okay, I'm going to do this on others. So my sister and I formed the Chari Center of Health, which is an integrative functional medical center that goes to the root causes versus the symptoms. So I worked on the emotional component, and my sister is a medical doctor, did the natural solution for medical issues. So that's what led to that, My father, this is a little side note here. I used to take care of my father, and giving him all his prescription medications every morning. And suddenly at age 51, he died of a massive heart attack. That was it. So my mom was left a widow and two teenage kids. So when my sister looked at each other saying, why did this happen? How did this happen? And how can we prevent this from happening to anyone else? Thus leading us into the future to search for all these methods of improvement in our lives.
When you answer the call to these questions, it's funny how that divine guidance or divine inspiration just kind of comes through and one thing leads to the next.
It is. It's amazing. It was just like divinely guided because I asked the universe, like, universe, I don't have a medical degree with that center my sister and I formed back in 1989. she's helping heal patients of all these medical conditions because of what our father went through. I said, I would like to work at our same center. I'm managing it, but I would like to. I was working as an engineer and conventional engineer in the field. How can I somehow heal people with this engineering background? 2 weeks after that, some friends told me about a presentation about this technology. And when I went there, that's what led me from one thing to the next. And I said, can I actually clear this bullying pattern? And then I did. And then many, many tons of people later, many people benefited because of what I went through. That's why I
Yeah.
call my program my Life Transformation Technology Program, because it literally transformed my life. Then I felt, okay, this will also transform other people's lives too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, amazing. It's amazing how when you're focused on the bullying and you're hyper vigilant and looking for the next bully, you're attracting that because that's your focus. That's what and it's the emotion that you're putting out. And these bullies and perpetrators, they can identify it with laser precision. Who has the
Absolutely.
defenses? Who doesn't? Who's going to be vocal? Who's not? And they'll come right for you. I mean, that's why people who when they had those patterns of abuse as children, they keep finding themselves in it later on. But
Absolutely.
when you can shift your focus away from that and move into something else of say, how can I clear this? And how can I help others do this? It's amazing how many other things just open up right in front of you. But you mentioned this multiple times is when we're in that pattern, when that's our default and that's all that we know, most of the times we know there's something else out there, but we don't have any idea of what it even looks like. For me, learning how to care for myself was an anomaly. I had no idea what self care looks like. How could I ever know what self care looks like when all I've ever known is abuse? So then you go in through these experiences, and whether you do it through this type of program or you do it through some sort of plant medicine or whatever, all of these are doing the exact same things. They're showing you the pattern that's at play and then showing you something that's outside of it. And that right there, the seeing the thing that's outside of the pattern is like a win for people who have never won at anything before. And from what I see, you tell me, once you can really see the pattern and then you can see this is something else, this is what this other pattern feels like and it's here for you. Once people get that win, there's this momentum that just happens and things just start to pile right on top of each other.
Exactly, exactly. Because, let's say they're repeating the same pattern over and over again. Like I just worked recently on a client who just realized that she was duped. She said, I will never be like my father. I made sure with my kids and my relationship that they'll never be like that. But when I tracked it down, I said, basically you're repeating the same thing your father did.
Hmm.
No, I don't think so. I was like, well, yeah, you are. And then as you said, the realization happened as we started going through, then suddenly all these tears flowed
Yeah.
out like in rivers, like, oh my gosh, you're right, Deepak. I
Yeah.
didn't realize I was unconsciously doing this pattern, even with my own kids, the thing I said I would never do. Or I
Hmm.
drew the same relationship. I didn't realize that. I said, well, that's okay. You are now aware of it. Now that you're aware of it, that's the whole thing. Awareness is everything. Now let's work step by step to clear this pattern now that you have the awareness so this won't repeat into your kids' lives and further on. And so yes, the emotional release comes because they realized that they were doing the thing they didn't want to do, but it's okay because then we can correct that and then shift everything, which is what I would do with them.
Yeah. Awareness is the prerequisite for choice. You can't make choices if you're not aware of the thing that's happening there. And yeah, very frequently we're so bent on trying not to do the thing that happened to us that we're trying to avoid the bullies, so we attract the bullies. Yeah.
I kept attracting them nonstop. It even continued not
Yeah.
past my childhood, into into my adulthood.
Oh,
So
yes.
so that's
Find them
why
everywhere.
I came to a point like I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
So, but only when I just gave up, like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. Universe, please help me. Give me a sign.
Yeah.
Give me anything. I want to do some with this background somehow to clear this. I had no
Yeah.
idea how I was going to do it, and then the way was made.
Liberate ourselves from those patterns. So first is the awareness of I'm in this. And then we accept, okay, well, I'm here. I can't fight it anymore. I got to do something with it. And then we build the tools, the skills, and it can happen very quickly for people, but it's a practice that we develop and mature over time. And that's how we can liberate ourselves from these old patterns.
Absolutely. You got it.
Fantastic, Deepak. I'm so happy that we got to chat about this. Um, for anybody listening, please tell us, how can we find you?
Absolutely. So I offer a complimentary 15-minute consult with me. No obligations. You can just share with me what's going on in your life. And then I customized my program for each unique person's issues. So I'll say, okay, this is the plan I have for you specifically, and how we can completely help you release this pattern, take you to a new way of life and new way of thinking, and liberate you of these emotions. And I'll propose that with each person. So yeah, a complimentary 15-minute consult with me. So what they can do is go to my website, which is www.fastanxietyhelp.com. So it's FASTANXIETY help, HELP.com. And you can read about my work. You can click on the testimonials tabs to see how many have benefited. You might connect with some of them. And most importantly, click on the link to schedule a complimentary 15-minute session with me, which you will really enjoy, I assure you. And then I'll map out a plan for each person that will attend that. I'll also give $100 gift certificate for the first foundational 3 sessions if they mention your show as well to me, because I definitely wanted to help them out.
There you have it. I will be sure to link all of that in the show notes so people can easily find you. And then $100 gift certificate. Can't go wrong with that. Tell us before we part ways, is there any other thing that you would want anybody listening who's thinking about this or is trying to find that they're realizing they're in the patterns and they're just having difficulties and they're not sure what to do next? Do you have any last closing words for people who are in that state?
Absolutely. I've been there. I felt life is hopeless. Is this my life? This is how my life is going to be. And many of the clients I had felt the same way too, that their life was destined like that. Let me tell you, all of your viewers and listeners, regardless of what you've gone through, regardless of the horrible events you've gone through, challenging, traumatic events you've gone through, no matter what you've gone through, you can have the life you desired. I know, because I've done it for myself and thousands of others. You can have the life you desire, even if you have no concept what that is, what a loving, nurturing relationship is, how to have that positive self-esteem, self-worth. You can have that. So I want to give hope to all of your people, regardless of where they are. You can start a whole new life, literally from scratch, and actually from that point onwards, actually have all those things you wanted in your life and those feelings and emotions you wanted.
You are worth it. Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you so much for your time, Deepak. It was lovely chatting with you. I'll be sure to link all of this. And again, thank you. I really appreciate your time here.
It's a pleasure being on your show, Julian.